Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a massive hidden environmental clash that is happening right in our own backyards. As the artificial intelligence boom completely reshapes our world, the giant data centers powering this revolution are running hotter than ever before. But keeping these digital brains cool comes with some monumental environmental stakes. We're facing a fundamental clash right now between technological progress and preserving our most precious natural resource, water.
To really wrap our heads around the scale of this problem, just look at this number, 5 million gallons. That is how much water a single traditional open-loop data center can guzzle every single day. Let that sink in for a second. That's equivalent to the daily water usage of more than 15,000 homes combined. And the issue isn't just the sheer consumption, it's what happens to the water afterward. At this massive scale, even minor impurities can accumulate and cause significant environmental harm if they're discharged improperly. The staggering reality is exactly why the tech industry is under such intense pressure to evolve.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for untangling this complex debate. We're going to cover the data center water crisis, how closed-loop systems work, the Tammy Clark controversy, rebutting the blowdown myth, and finally, the realities and trade-offs.
Section 1. The data center water crisis, and exactly why the industry is shifting.
So, why is the tech world so desperately trying to move away from traditional, water-hungry cooling methods? Well, it boils down to a collision between the intense physics of modern computer chips and our fragile local water supplies. For decades, data centers relied heavily on the principle of latent heat. This is evaporative cooling. It works by pushing warm air through a water-soaked membrane. As the water evaporates or undergoes a phase change, it carries an enormous amount of heat away with it. Now, it's highly energy efficient and incredibly good at cooling servers. But here's the catch. The defining characteristic of a latent heat system is that the water acts as a sacrificial medium. Millions of gallons are literally burned off into the atmosphere, completely removing that water from the local ecosystem. What does that mean for your community? It means the tech sector is increasingly competing with local neighborhoods and farms for the exact same water supply.
Section 2. How closed-loop systems work. The car radiator analogy. As local communities and regulators have understandably pushed back against this massive water consumption, the tech industry's primary solution has become the closed-loop cooling system. Think of it very much like the radiator in your car. Unlike latent heat, closed-loop systems rely on what's called sensible heat. This is heat transfer that simply raises the temperature of a fluid without any evaporation taking place. Because there's no phase change, the liquid doesn't just vanish into thin air. It just gets hotter, and then it needs to be cooled down again. You'll notice the distinct pathways here, the blue lines for the cool fluid and the red lines for the warm fluid. Inside those pipes is a water glycol mix, but the absolutely crucial point to understand is that this fluid is kept perfectly contained. It circulates in a sealed circuit to absorb heat from the servers, and then it rejects that heat to the outside air, keeping the cooling fluid entirely isolated so it can be reused again and again and again. The whole process energetically loops through 4 continuous thermodynamic steps. First up, heat absorption. The fluid runs through cold plates right on top of the hot processors, absorbing that sensible heat. Second, heat transport. The warm liquid flows out of the server hall through a sealed network of tubes. Third is heat rejection. The warm coolant passes through a heat exchanger, usually a giant dry cooler up on the roof, transferring its heat to the outside air. And finally, coolant return. The newly chilled liquid is pumped right back to the servers. Throughout this entire continuous cycle, the fluid literally never makes contact with the outside atmosphere.
Section 3. The Tammy Clark controversy and the claims against these closed-loop systems.
Despite the perfectly sealed design of these systems, they've recently become the target of some incredibly intense scrutiny. This whole controversy was really sparked by Tammy Clark. Now, she is not just a casual observer. We are talking about a highly credentialed occupational, environmental health, and safety professional. She has specialized government-level training from OSHA, the EPA, and the DOT. Plus, she's an industrial hygiene specialist. Because of this undeniably impressive background, her public testimony before a Michigan House Oversight Subcommittee carried a tremendous amount of weight and fundamentally shifted the public debate.
During her testimony in February 2026, she made a very specific, alarming claim. She stated, quote, "Closed-loop water systems do not work. They pick up anti-corrosives and biocides that are blown down into aquifers." She argued that not only are these systems ineffective, but they actually pollute local groundwater with toxic chemicals. And she specifically pointed to municipal projects, like one in DeKalb, Illinois, as prime examples of this danger. Section 4. Rebutting the blowdown myth. Let's do a technical evaluation.
When we run an objective scientific evaluation of this, we find a fundamental category error in the testimony. Let's look at the mechanics to understand exactly why a trained professional would make this claim. In traditional industrial settings, open-loop systems evaporate water, which concentrates minerals, so they absolutely require a routine chemical blow-down discharge just to clear out the pipes. It's very easy for an industrial professional to assume all cooling loops work this way, but modern hyperscale closed loops are entirely sealed circuits. Because there is zero evaporation, minerals do not concentrate. Therefore, a closed-loop system mechanically requires zero blow-down discharge. The blow-down of pollutants that Mrs. Clark described is an exclusive mechanical reality of open-loop systems, not modern closed-loop ones.
And this brilliantly illustrates the disconnect. Look at the status in closed-loop column. It is absolutely true that chemicals like biocides, corrosion inhibitors, and heavy metals exist inside data center cooling systems to prevent rust and biofilm. In an open-loop system, if those get discharged, they pose a huge environmental risk. But because the pipes in a closed-loop system are permanently sealed, these chemicals are safely contained and just recirculated. Mechanically speaking, there's simply no pathway for them to enter the local environment or aquifers.
To firmly conclude this rebuttal, let's look at the exact location referenced in the testimony, DeKalb, Illinois. The specific hyperscale project there, known as Project Vector, utilizes an advanced waterless thermal works system. According to their actual engineering specifications, this system cycles the exact same batch of fluid for up to 20 years. It has zero operational water discharge. So, scientifically and objectively speaking, a system that physically does not discharge water into the environment cannot pollute the groundwater with the chemicals it uses for internal maintenance.
Section 5. Realities and trade-offs. The true cost of saving water.
Now, to be totally fair here, while the technical evaluation shows that Mrs. Clark's claims about water pollution were based on a mechanical misunderstanding, it is absolutely vital to acknowledge that closed-loop systems are not some magic bullet. They have actual, very real downsides. Because closed-loop systems rely on sensible heat and don't get that massive efficiency boost from evaporation, they require significantly more electricity to power their massive fans and pumps. They also demand a much larger physical footprint for the heat exchangers, they require a way higher initial capital investment, and because they rely on ambient dry bulb temperatures, they lose a ton of efficiency on hot summer days. So here is the direct trade-off. To achieve near-zero water use, you must consume vastly more electricity, which puts an immense compounding strain on our local power grids.
Which leaves us with a really profound dilemma to consider. As these power-hungry AI workloads continue to explode exponentially across the globe, we are forcing infrastructure planners into a tight corner. By insisting on closed-loop systems to protect our local aquifers, we are placing an unprecedented strain on our electricity grids. So what is the ultimate cost of trading our energy grid for our water supply? It's a complex, monumental resource management choice that's going to define the future of our communities, and it's one we all need to be paying very close attention to. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.